I'd like to call this meeting of the Sheffield Board of Selectmen to order on November 1st, 2001. First of all, thank you all for being with us tonight, and those who are watching from home, thank you CTSB for recording this. Our first, I want to let you know that the meeting is being recorded. If you would like to address the board, just raise your hand and you'll be called on. The smaller mic is CTSB's mic. The larger mic is for the room. If anyone cannot hear, please raise your hand and let us know, or move a little bit closer and we'll try to speak up. All right. First order of business is approval of meeting minutes.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of September 30th, 2021, October 4th and October 7th, 2021, October 18th, 2021, 2 sets, and October 22nd, 2021.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we'd like to welcome our fire chief, Chief Ulrich, and ask him for an update on the fire department. Thank you for being with us, Chief.
Good evening, everyone. So yeah, I was asked to update the board, the community, update on the fire department. I did bring Mark Wasaki along with me. He is the secretary of the host company, which is our association that maintains and fundraises. So I'm going to refer to him when I'm done, and he can kind of give you an update on the building and our fundraising efforts and stuff like that.
Great.
Okay. So just a couple reminders. Daylight savings is this weekend, so it's a good chance to have your batteries changed and your smoke detectors. We like to try to do that twice a year. So it's a good maintenance to do that. And cleaning your chimneys, again, it's that time of year when we start burning. Normal maintenance, at least, you should have your chimneys cleaned at least once a year. So just a reminder, it certainly would help us. So a couple things early in the year, we had 4 members. It started May 15th and went through August 11th. These members participated in the Firefighter 1 class in Connecticut. Some may ask why they went to Connecticut. The reason is because the Mass Fire Academy this year canceled all of their training. So we had 4 members that wanted to go through the class. The class was held in Burrville, Connecticut, just outside of Torrington. 4 members graduated the end of August. Their names are Seamus Wolf, Colby Blow, Adrian Misakongo, and Ricky Boardman. Seamus, after they graduated Fire 1, Seamus jumped right into Fire 2, so he's active in that class right now. And I have no doubt in my mind that he'll graduate at the end of November for his Fire 2 class. So we continue train on Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock. Our membership, I would say, relative to the communities around us is up. The atmosphere in the fire department is good. I'm proud to be the chief. We have a lot of young members, so things are good, and everybody's willing to train and to take the extra classes. We've had a few of the new members. A member 2 weeks ago jumped into an air pack class that was out just south of Boston. So he took the weekend. He had some family down in that area. He signed up for the class, spent some time with his brother, but Saturday and Sunday he participated in that class as well. So as you know, we did receive Squad 3. We took delivery of that beginning of June, end of May. That is in service now. It's really set up to handle motor vehicle accidents, vehicle fires, hazmat. We've got ropes on it. We've got ice water rescue. You know, I really call it our toolbox, right? That's why we call it a squad. If you look it up, it's a special operations vehicle. So it really is set up to do a lot of things. So we're waiting on a few other things to come in, but it is in service. And now we will take time to take engine 2 and get that refurbed, and I'm working on that as we speak. I've sent some pictures out, so we know we have to have some body work done to that. You know, hopefully it'll prolong the life of that for a few years to get us by. So that's kind of what I was waiting for, is to get the squad in service, so we at least had 3 apparatus in service. So if we take one out for, you know, I'm estimating probably 3-4 weeks anyways to have that work done. So, what else? Hose testing was completed in August. Again, we fared pretty well. I think there was only a couple lengths that failed, so there were really no issues there. We're still in good shape on that. There's the fire, the FY 2022 fire safety equipment grant just came out. It's a little different this year from what I'm reading. It's not like last year. I think it was dependent on the size of your town and how they awarded the money. It's more of a competitive grant this year. It's based on a point system, based on type of the equipment being requested and the reason it's being requested. That's part 1. Part 2 is a mandatory training program that myself will have to do. It's a webinar. I think it's an hour long, but those are like the prerequisites for this grant this year. The application period closes December 7th, so it doesn't give me a whole lot of time, but I'll get it done and we'll get it submitted. Lastly, I just have, so the 5 towns, Sheffield, Great Barrington, Stockbridge, Lee, and Lennox, again, we're working on the holiday parade of lights. It's just some pre-planning. We're thinking it's going to be December 11th. We had a lot of positive feedback last year from all the communities, so you know, once this year we're obviously planning on doing it again. Obviously more details to follow, but that is the day. So again, any of the building questions and stuff like that, I'm going to defer to Mark, because again, the host company, I'm just a voting member. You know, we're run by a president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. So Mark is the secretary, but if anybody has any questions regarding the fire department, I certainly can answer.
Any questions from the public? Any questions from the board?
No, I think it's covered it all.
I want to congratulate the chief, as I think we all do, on just the incredible ability of this fire department volunteer to attract new members and to keep their members. From everything I've read, your department is outstanding in the ability to attract new members. I think it's been, what, over 8 in the last year or so?
Yeah.
And there's this whole young wave coming in, which is absolutely incredible. So thank you, Chief, and all of your lieutenants and members for serving our community so well. Anyone else have any comments? Or?
No, I'm good.
So yeah, Mark will just give you a quick update on the building.
Hi, so I'm Mark Wysocki. I'm the secretary for the hose company. Right now, our building is almost complete. Our second floor is done, and then when I mean done, I mean the floors are down, the walls are up, but we still have more to work on inside on the second floor. of the flooring and painting and such. And on the first floor, we still haven't touched the bathrooms yet because we ran out of funding. But fortunately, we had a very successful boot drive a few weeks ago, probably one of our best. And then we also, our open house also lent us to a few donors, which is also helping. And then we're gonna have our calendar raffle coming up in December. We'll be starting that in November, which will also market a huge boost for our donations as well. Yeah, bless you. So, but I think now we're finally, getting hopefully back to our next normal, whatever that may be, and getting back to our fundraising and, finishing off the second floor and obviously new bathrooms as well as our big aim as well. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, thank you both very much. We'll go to our other chief, Chief Munson.
I always play something.
And he's our other chief just because he's following the other chief, so.
So I'm here tonight to introduce to the public our newest sergeant, Jake. You stand up. This is Jacob Gonska. I'm just going to do a little bio on Jake for those of you who don't. I won't embarrass you, don't worry. So Jake started with the Sheffield Police Department back in 2007 when he attended the part-time police academy under the direction of Chief McGarry. Soon after finishing the part-time academy, he self-sponsored himself, meaning he paid his own way to go into the full-time academy, graduating in 2009. Am I correct in that? In 2009, Chief McGarry then had the foresight to hire him full-time, add him to the ranks of the police department. Since Jake's been on the department, he's been a phenomenal advocate for training. He loves taking training, and he loves imparting that training that he's received on the other officers and the chief while he's been on the department. So it's only fitting that I see him as a great asset to the department, as a trainer, as a leader of the department. Some of the things that Jake has done in his training and continues to do, which saves the department and the town, secondly, in a lot of funds, is he's a trainer to train our own people, so we don't have to send people out to get trained. Some of those include defensive tactics instructor, taser instructor, firearms instructor. He's also recently completed the motor vehicle crash investigator course to investigate crashes more thoroughly, and he's going to continue to lead our field officer training program for the department, which trains new officers when they come on board. He has a huge resume. He has a huge file of trainings that he's taken over his career since 2009. I would be here all night trying to list those to the public, but they're very beneficial to the town of Sheffield and the officers of the department. Jake has also fostered a true community policing spirit here in town. Jake has organized for over the last 8 years the Toys for Tots drive that we have at the police station. He's managed and coordinated the Cops and Kids Camp, as well as being an instructor and coordinator for the rape aggression defense classes that we hold here. Well, we used to hold until COVID struck. We're hoping to get back into those. Jake's also been known to lend out one of our police cars to Batman during Halloween to patrol our roads. You get the joke if you saw him in his Batman costume driving around town. I'm proud to see Jake being promoted to sergeant, and I have no doubt he will be an asset to the town and the citizens of Sheffield. I look forward to working with him, and I think he deserves this. He's served a long time, and he's paid his dues.
Wonderful. And Jake, I'm just going to ask you if you want to say a few words or save those for a little bit later, whatever you're the most comfortable with.
I appreciate the opportunity to serve in Sheffield in this new capacity, and look forward to continuing forward with the team and bringing a positive atmosphere to the workplace.
Okay, and today's your first day as sergeant?
It is.
Okay, congratulations.
And he's on his day off.
He knows how to play it right. Good. Well, thank you for coming in then.
It's a very crisp shirt that you've got on, so
Yeah.
Congratulations.
yes, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jake's brother is also a police officer in Sandusfield, and then Jake's son, Jack.
Oh,
sitting next to
Oh,
him.
welcome.
wonderful. Excellent. You must be very proud of your father. Good. All right, thank you both, chiefs. Appreciate it. Our next item of business is announcement of interested parties for the Housing Production Plan Committee. Rhonda, would you like to make that announcement?
Sure. So we have had, from the planning board, has nominated Sari Hoy to be their delegate to the committee. And then we have Frank Garrison, who has also applied to be on the committee. And I believe Martin expressed interest in being a member of the Board of Selection.
Yes.
So we still have room, someone from the Housing Commission and some members of the public.
Okay, so we had said that we would limit this to 7. I believe that's where we were. So we have 3. So we're looking for 4. I think maybe this has not gotten as publicized as it could be. So I'm just wondering if the board would like me to write up a short little looking, where the Sheffield, Town of Sheffield is forming a housing production plan to do this. We're looking for members, and then provide Jill's address, put that in the Edge and Eagle, of course, for free. See if we could get the word out a little bit. Okay, I'll run it by Rhonda, of course, before but we'll get that done this week, okay? And we're still waiting to hear from the Housing Commission, so basically we're looking for 3. Sorry? Yes, please. Yeah.
Sari Hoy, Main Street, Sheffield, Housing Commission member. We had a Housing Commission meeting prior to the Select Board meeting this evening, and we selected Kathy Orlando to be our nominee.
Wonderful, thank you. Would you just send an email?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So now we're down to just needing 3. Kathy?
Quick thing, if you...
Please?
Sorry. Kathy Orlando, Chair of the Housing Commission, but I'm here with the Sheffield Times hat. If you want to write that blurb up, we still have the ability to squeeze something short into the Sheffield Times.
Oh, okay, fine. I'll do
Yes.
that too.
Yeah.
All right,
We'll
I'll
be
get
doing
it to.
We're
try to
doing
get
the
it-
final edits tomorrow, so I'll just tell Andrea we need a little bit of space and we'll get that in.
Okay, I'll run it by Rhonda tomorrow morning.
Yep.
And we'll get it to Andrea?
Yes,
Okay,
Yes.
good. Thank you, Kathy.
you bet.
Excellent. So we now have 4 members. Wonderful. We have a packet of information in the other room for everyone. So if after the meeting, 3 of you would like to get your packet, if you are interested in starting reading, okay, we have that for you. All right. If you want to wait until the meeting gets started, we can do that too. But I have the feeling both of you would be interested in probably reading earlier than later. Yeah, we also have the newer ones, not the gray ones. Those were the preliminary. We have the finals. Jill found those, so that's in the packet, okay? And I'll get Frank. First of all, I guess we need to accept these members. I guess Frank is the only one who is not officially recommended from a board, such as the Housing or the Planning Board or the Select Board. So is there a nomination to accept him for this Housing Production Committee?
This was an announcement as listed on the agenda.
I'm sorry?
An announcement.
Announcement.
We're just announcing him tonight?
The members that have come forward, Kathy, Sari, Frank.
We're just announcing them tonight?
Martin.
So we're going to wait. I thought we talked at our last meeting so we could get started about appointing them possibly on the 1st, rather than having to wait another 2
Then I
weeks.
apologize for that. If you want to suspend your policy and we'll ratify it at the next meeting, that's
What do
it.
you guys want to do?
I said we go ahead and appoint those 4 that have expressed interest.
Then would you make a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we're still 3 short. We'll get some information out. We'll get the information that we have to the 4. And I'd like to see, I'd rather not wait another 2 weeks to see if we can get some additional people who are interested. I mean, that puts us into the middle of November, then it's Thanksgiving, and now we're into December. But I'm just wondering, with 4 people, do you want to, Martin, I'll just ask you, since you're on the planning board and you're the representative from our board, do you think it would be of value to try to get started, at least introductions, and get some discussion on the table, or you think we should try to wait for the full board? What would you
I'd like to see at least 1 more citizen come forward to make it 5, and we could start the discussions as it relates to mapping out the housing production plan.
Okay, all
So
right.
if we could give it 2 more weeks.
All right, we'll give it 2 more weeks. All right. Sari?
There has been some interest from, one of the other Housing Commission members that she would like to be on the committee. Can she either be on it as a Housing Commission member or as just as a
There's 2 of
citizen?
you now already from Housing Commission. I mean, you're the planning boards, but you're on
Yeah.
the commission. I personally would not, I would like to see it more spread out.
Okay.
Okay, I
Yep.
don't know how the other board members feel.
Aye.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think we make an appeal to the community again, and then along the lines of what you've discussed, to see if we have other interest.
Okay,
And I have no problem with it, another board member from the housing committee, if there was 2. Or, I know it would be technically 3, but Sari's sitting for the planning board, so.
then have her submit a letter of interest.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? All right. So we're really looking for people to serve on this housing production plan. It's pretty well laid out in terms of the format. Everyone will get that information. The housing needs assessment study has already been done. It's just a matter of reading it. So I guess we're into our next item, which is discussion possible action regarding the housing plan, production plan charter. We had Chris Brown, who will be the liaison, the facilitator from BRPC, who has done this work in Albany. He was down here on Friday, so I kind of gave him a tour of Sheffield. All right. He brought down some of the materials for this committee. There has been some feeling that a charter might be of use. So rather than just produce a housing production plan, a little bit of a charter to go with that, if there were some things that people wanted to include in that. So I think maybe we just need to think about that for another 2 weeks, or whether this just sticks strictly with the housing production plan, okay? So let's think about that, and we'll pick it up in 2 weeks.
Do we have examples of what that charter would look like?
No. I think some of the items that Chris mentioned was when you do the housing production plan, you do it for your community. Is there, one of those items could be, do you want to look at it possibly also incorporating more of a regional or a bi-town, a 2-town or 3-town, all right? Do you, when you look at housing production, you're looking at producing units. Do you potentially want to have this group also look at some other ways, such as some of the first-time loans to buyers who are trying to get into the market? They're not asking you to produce a unit for them, but they need help buying something. So it's just whether you want to focus on the housing production, which after you read the materials can be kind of tight, or whether you want to look at housing support after you finish the housing production plan to encourage more home ownership or help people who are renting now move into a position of being able to buy. But I just bring that up because Chris brought it up. Pat?
Pat Levine, 261 East Main Street. I'm curious, what's the difference between a charter to that committee and a charge to that committee?
Same thing.
Oh, well, I definitely think you should have a charge. Okay. Otherwise, how do they know exactly what they're supposed to do?
Thank you, Pat. So let's think about that?
Sounds
Okay,
good.
all right. Anything else on that one, Rhonda, or anyone? All right, next item is an appointment for the Conservation Commission, and we announced the 2 names at the last meeting. Rhonda, would you do that for us, please?
Sure, so you announced Donald Roeder and George O'Lean for one opening on the Conservation Commission.
And that would be for a 3-year term?
Yes.
And we have only one position currently, correct?
Correct.
But we do have 2 alternate positions.
Yes.
Correct.
We'll handle that in just a minute.
Okay.
Okay. So is there a motion?
I'm going to make a motion to appoint Donald Roeder to the Sheffield Conservation Commission.
And I'll second that.
Is there any discussion for this 3-year term?
No, the only reason for my decision is based that George is already on the planning board, so I would like to give another opportunity to someone else for the Conservation Commission.
All right, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, there's appointment announcement. Rhonda, would you handle this for us, please?
Sure. So as Bob mentioned, we can have 2 alternates to the Conservation Commission. So we had Anna Rossoff, who had applied to be on the commission. I would like to reach out to her to see if she was interested in the alternate, and George as well, and maybe have that discussion on for next time. So if we can consider them as announced tonight, we might be able to get them appointed on the 15th.
Okay.
And then we have a letter from Maggie Carroll, who would like to be on the Ashley Falls Historic District Commission. So that would be an announcement too, and action would take place on that one at the next meeting.
Okay, excellent. Our next, let's kind of put these 2 items together. Discussion possible action regarding Polikoff Road traffic study, and then also possible action, discussion possible action regarding the intersection of Clayton and Polikoff Roads and the intersection of Canaan and Canaan Roads. We have our highway superintendent with us tonight, and Jim, Colleen, would you like to discuss the intersection item first, and then we can get back to kind of the traffic studies?
The intersection Polikoff and Clayton Road down in Ashley Falls, it's an old design. 2 of the problems are the stop lines are way back. So either way you come into the intersection of Clayton Road, your sight lines are way off. And we have a very off-ramp approach to the Polikoff southbound lane, which allows excessive speed on the corner. So at this point, I've done some with what's there, come up with kind of an idea that we could test and see. So I don't know if you want to move over to that. So same layout, everything as far as the body of it, we can't change. But I did talk with the chief this morning on some of the ideas here. Initially, to start, we could move the stop line further into the intersection without compromising the travel lane. And by making you kind of put a half circle turn as you would approach this, it allows you to see better to the west and also from the east, so, east-west, yeah, okay. And then to slow down on the corner from Clayton Road on to Polycoff, we could square this off, because in the history, or recently over the last 15 years or so, the state has started squaring off a lot of their intersections instead of making them the merge type. So I went down and we could come out about 10 feet off the corner with temporary blocks so that the traffic would have to physically make the turn instead of just lean on the corner. And then with that, we would eliminate the outbound lane here and use the island where the telephone pole is. Everybody knows where the telephone pole is in the middle of the road. And we could put keep right signs on both ends of this. And then you would come out here to a stop line, which allows you a lot more visibility either way. And I did have a fellow with a tractor trailer, John Jackier, came and donated a half an hour for me. And he came with the truck and physically made the corners that we were all questioning. And with no problem at all, the tractor trailer was able to make anything without damaging anything, without going over on Mr. Curtis's property or impeding anything over here. So what this would do is the traffic coming in off of Clayton Road would enter into here, which it says one way, but it's only in this small section because you'd still have the travel lane. But you would put a keep right sign here so that it would move them to the right. So this would leave this part of the intersection open for the traffic turning and then entering either way from Polycoff or Clayton.
Question, if I may?
Yep.
So the traffic that is going north on Polycoff before it comes to the intersection, no matter whether you're going to turn right or left or go straight, still does the keep right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so you would come up here and then you would have to make your you'd have to do your driving.
Okay.
That way there because I live right down the street.
Right.
And we all use this as the inside of the turn. So we'd have to put signage up to try this. But yeah, my suggestion would be have everyone go to the right, make your turn if you want to go that way or either way you want to go, because that one time you're coming up here, because you are going to be narrowing this down where the traffic would be just making your off-ramp kind of approach, they're going to have to turn into it now. So, it would just be safer that you didn't have traffic in this small little about 60-foot area.
And then a follow-on question. So the stop signs are on the northeast corner on Polycoff Road.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Sorry, northwest.
Northwest.
And also on the southeast.
Right. Right now the stop sign is here, and it's also back a little bit so that you don't have a good sight line. When you approach here, most of the time you have to either come up and kind of like this, you have to go right a little bit to see the lane. Whereas if you come up to here, it shows you the lane almost all the way to Bunce Road, which is longer and easier to see. So it's kind of we could set it up and try it with temporary equipment and signage, and if it was to work, the ideal thing would be to move this island and this pole into this intersection, move it this way a little more. But working with what we have, we can do the test and the trial however you want to.
So Jim, when you were to not come straight through on Polycoff, but instead turn to the right, there's going to be a stop sign there too.
Here?
No.
On the side?
The right hand.
It's going to be on the right-hand side of the island now. So in other words, right now it's here.
So people who would take that little turn off would stop before they would flip back down to then go on Polycoff.
Or right, or cut across to Polycoff. Just basically making everybody perform a maneuver versus just flying through. I almost got hit the other morning, so people are just, they
It's a
got
dangerous
comfortable with it.
intersection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would be in favor of making it a four-way stop before I would want to go through all this extra work, because a four-way stop would do the same thing as what we're looking for without having to change the intersection.
Chief,
My fear with the,
Go ahead, Jim.
my fear with the four-way stop is that every vehicle with a loud exhaust, every truck with a Jake brake, every motorcycle,
You still have a two-way stop.
this circle of 5 houses is gonna be punished.
You still have a two-way stop. Adding 2 more would not increase it by much.
But you're asking the main thoroughfare of road to stop. So
That would be the idea, to
I'm
make the
just
intersection
doing what you
safer
guys
and
asked
slow
me as far as
traffic
the
down.
design.
You would serve 2 purposes instead of just one by making it a four-way stop.
Chief, do you have any comments? And if you could go to the mic so we all could hear as well as the public.
I can take.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. I think, you know, Jim and I talked about this morning and the other day, and I kind of feel similar to what Jim says, knowing these trucks and cars that we have nowadays that make these, you know, when they, I mean, and it's the young kids and not so much young kids, when they take off, they don't take off slow, they to the floor, and because they want to get going. And they all have a loud exhaust, so, and I do agree with Jim, I think it'll be a little bit of a lot of an inconvenience for the people that live on those corners to be constantly hearing that brum, brum, or the loud exhausts or bikes or whatever it is. If this is a temporary fix, you know, a temporary trial, I don't see the harm in testing it out first for a couple months to see how it works, get public comment, and then if it's not appeasable, I think a four-way stop might be the other alternative.
Yeah, 'cause
But I think this is worth a shot because it does keep traffic moving, but yet in the most dangerous side, going straight through on Clayton isn't the dangerous part. The dangerous part is pulling off of Polycoff and going in either direction. They're the ones that are constantly, you're hearing, you know, there's a friend of mine lives on the corner. He's always hearing screeching tires because somebody goes to pull out and there's a car going by and you know, so I think that's a good solution for that. We could always put a rotary or roundabout in there. And I was gonna say, my wife is English, and they would have a little mini circle in the middle of that, and you drive around it until you got lost, and then you'd shoot off into the woods.
So you would have to do some, if well, okay, so, back to this. If you were to go with this, you're going to have to do some marking on Polycoff going across Clayton. You're going to have to do some marking and a new stop sign. What are you going to do with this, what seems to be a box that's one way? Are you looking to line that out? Or what are you looking to do to let the person who doesn't want to go right onto your little thing and stop and then come back down? What's going to keep them from just going straight?
For temporary, all we can do is a sign of all vehicles, you know, to the right. I mean, it's all signage.
Could there be at least temporarily marking all the way out to here? It
Yep.
says all traffic must follow.
Yep. Yeah, we could paint the line and come up with some signage or something.
And Mr. Jackieri's truck could actually make that turn
Yes, he
without
came in-
having to
Yeah,
back up?
he came in, made this turn, and didn't even clip the corner here, then came back, and he went backwards through it for me just to try it, and then we did the other entrance here, which is, you know.
But he's not being asked to go up and come down again?
No,
He would
this-
just
no,
take
the trucks,
that-
this
yes.
was just, he did it.
Okay.
Just to show that it could be done without, we didn't get over in here at all. There wouldn't be any, tracking of mud or anything like that. I mean, for a temporary try, it can be done. It's just a matter of the respect of the drivers working with the new traffic pattern, to try it out.
And I think too, in conjunction with that, making the changes, if my department is down there doing some educational type stuff, not giving people tickets, of course, but just kind of down there monitoring it and seeing how it flows. And then, you know, if somebody's confused, we can tell them why we're doing it and get their thoughts on it, you know, at the same time.
Rhonda, you get a lot of comments from people on everything. How do you feel this might be accepted, or your comments on it?
I think it's certainly worth a try to see how it goes. So I would put a time limit on it and see if we have any feedback, and if not, make it a permanent.
Okay. The other thing that's the other part of this equation is limiting the size of certain trucks on Polikoff. I know, Chief, I think you said, I don't know if it was in a meeting or whether it was just when I was over at the station, you had said that one day you were out in the morning and you saw 6 or 7 large trucks come through.
Yeah, I worked a midnight shift.
Could you, please?
I worked a midnight shift a week or so ago, and I sat down there just monitoring traffic. I wasn't there on purpose to count trucks, but then when I saw the first one come out of Polikoff, well, they came out of Eastall Road, actually, which conversely, they come up Polikoff and Clayton, and I counted 12 tractor trailers that came through there, and that was about 6:30, between 6 and 6:30 in the morning. So there is a lot of truck traffic on that road, a lot of truck traffic. Empty trucks, full trucks, box trucks, it's hard to tell what they're hauling, but certainly, I'm not sure those roads were designed or constructed for heavy traffic like that, but that's another discussion, I think.
Was there a certain axle size that you saw that struck you as?
No, there was, I mean, there were, the 11 or 12 that I counted were actual trailer trucks, you know, 52
foot
long. And then, you know, there's always constant, you know, triaxles, which are hauling dirt or sand or that kind of stuff going through that way too. So it's kind of a constant thing.
I personally think a certain amount of this goes together, you know, and I know, Bob, you said they shouldn't be sent down to Cemetery Road or whatever it is. I think you said that, but I went down there today purposely to look at it, and it's a narrower road. It's 25 miles an hour. It's a right turn for Bonzel and also Century Acquisitions, and at most there's 3 houses on that road. And then it's a right turn to go back onto Route 7 to go north. Polikoff has got houses all over the place. It's a very heavily populated. So what does the board want to do about this at the present time?
I would make a motion that we accept the Highway Director, Jim Collingwood's proposal for a temporary realignment of the intersection with signage for a period of 2 months to evaluate the effectiveness of it. That's my motion.
All right, I would second that. All right. Could we put it potentially through the first part of January?
So amended.
Okay. Bob, would you like to say anything before you vote no or don't vote?
Yeah, I'll basically say that I think it's a lot of resources used needlessly. A 4-way stop would solve the problem for a lot less money and aggravation. I just feel this is too complicated with too many issues, that it's going to create more problems than it solves. 2 stop signs, done deal, other than maybe some takeoff traffic noise, but minor issue for the trade-off.
Okay. Well, I wanted to be sure, I know someone kind of laughed, but I wanted to make sure that we all understood what Bob's position and what his thinking was, because not supporting something, it's important to know the thinking, and now we all know what Bob said, which is important for us, and I think it's also important for the public as this is evaluated to understand that there is a second solution that has been proposed. All right. So anything else from either Martin or Bob?
No.
No. All right. Then let's go ahead. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Sorry, did you want to make, I wanted to finish that vote, but did you want to make a comment?
Roundabout aside, what about what we call sleeping policemen? Just a bump, you know, a long bump that goes along each side of Polycarp, so that the traffic basically has to slow down, otherwise they're going to go over this huge bump too fast. We use that a lot in heavily populated areas,
Yeah.
and it really slows traffic down.
They use it in Stockbridge on the cut-through around downtown. They use it in Stockbridge. Yeah. Anyone want to make a comment on that? I know they can't be down during the winter. They have to be pulled for plowing.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's,
Maybe we don't have
yeah, so you may in time. But- All right, so we'll get that done, and we'll see how that goes. Jim, thank you for your creativity on that, and thank you, Chief, for your input. Let's see how this goes. I still would like to just kind of keep the thought about limiting the size of the truck. I think it should slow down since we won't be having as many cement trucks, but I'd like to have us still keep that in mind. We'll see how this works. All right, so our next one is discussion possible action regarding increased abutter notice for permits. Rhonda, would you bring us up to date, please?
So earlier in the spring, we had a conversation regarding increasing the notice for special permits. We had a request, actually, to go 2,500 feet. Right now, in the law, we follow Chapter 48, which is 300 feet. So the board discussed it and talked about the possibility of it being 1,000 feet and asking, putting it on a special town meeting warrant. It was discussed again at the retreat, discussing the time and the cost, and town council's opinion on the town would have to bear the expense of the extra notifications. And so the board wanted to have that on this agenda again to discuss if they would like to follow through with the 1,000 or keep it as is. This is 300.
Anyone have any comments?
My view is to keep it as it is, at 300 feet for abutters.
I did consider the 1,000 feet as a compromise, but after the hydrant issue that
NOI.
we had, being, I think there was 26 hydrants with notice of abutters, if we went to the 1,000 feet, it would have been tremendous burden. So I'm all right with the 300. It's worked so far.
Okay, I think there was also the issue that abutter notifications have to be sent a certain way by state law.
Yes, either certified or certificate of mailing. It's very expensive.
Okay, they can't be sent by emails, as someone had suggested. They can't make use of new technologies. The town would have to bear that to basically two things, I think. One, let people in town know what's happening, and these are posted special, if we're talking special permits for the planning board, they're posted twice in the paper. They're posted on the website, the legal notice, correct, Rhonda?
Yes.
Okay, they're posted on the board. They're posted on the calendar. So, and then there's a certain amount of just awareness and people letting people know, which I think has kind of been the traditional way. So I think except for someone who doesn't want to or doesn't have the ability to look at internet, there's a fair amount of notices on this, and I think that's my reason for stepping back from the 1,000 feet. The person had originally asked for 2,500, so the 1,000 was thought as a compromise, and after receiving some information and looking at the costs and council's issues, I felt it was just not worth it. So is there a motion, I think, then, to rescind our previous thinking and leave it at the current, and then if someone wants to take this up, they can do so under a citizen's petition or something of that sort and let the town vote on it.
So moved.
Okay, so we're back to 300 feet, and we've rescinded our motion of supporting 1,000 feet for abutters notices. So let's just take a vote on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. So our next item is discussion possible action regarding electricity renewal with Constellation New Energy for basically town facilities. Rhonda?
So at the last meeting, we talked about it, and the price that we had had from Constellation was higher than what our program with Colonial Power was. And so I wanted to talk with Colonial Power, and they would be happy to accept the buildings that are not in there at this point. And I believe if we are putting this program out to our residents, that the town should probably also be in the same program, and it allows the town to use the green energy that was negotiated with Colonial Power.
And we get a cheaper rate.
Yes, I don't have, I'm sorry, I don't have the rates in front of me, but yes, it was cheaper at that point. I didn't get new rates from Constellation, but it's only been 2 weeks, and I can't imagine that it's gone down below what Colonial Power had offered.
Yeah, well, they gave you rates, I think, at the start, a couple weeks ago, when they wanted us to renew the contract.
Yes.
Which kind of triggered the flag of,
Yes.
these rates are much higher than what our residents are getting who have, are in the program. So, and how long of a contract would this be for?
This goes with the Colonial Power contract, and I'd have to look up the
I
expiration
think it's a couple
date.
of years.
It was, I believe when you signed it, was it 5? It was either 3 or 5, so,
Yeah.
and we've only been into it for about a year.
So what would the board like to do?
Renee, can I say one
Sure.
more thing? It's also not a contract, it's one of those opt-out.
Right.
So at any point, if those rates skyrocket and we check with Constellation and it's less at that time, we can opt out and go back to what we were doing before.
Well, I would make a motion that we do not renew our contract with Constellation New Energy, but the town execute an agreement with Colonial Power with regard to our town electricity for our town buildings.
Or just opt in?
Opt
Or
in.
just opt in.
Okay.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So our next item is, we have the resignation of 2 police officers.
Yes, we do. We have a resignation from Cameron Forrest, who's received a job offer, conditional job offer with the Great Barrington Police Department. He'd like to thank the town for the opportunities they've given him during his career in Sheffield. It's been an honor to serve Sheffield. And we have a second one from Jeffrey Spratt. He'll no longer be working for the Sheffield Police Department as of October 22nd. He'd like to thank us for the last years and wish the town the best future endeavors.
I'll make a motion to approve both resignations and send letters of thanks.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Our next item is a discussion possible action regarding Board of Health software. And we all have this memorandum of agreement between BRPC and what would be the town of Sheffield for work in support of the U.S. Health and Human Services Federal Drug Administration grant regarding the Berkshire County Board of Health online permitting program. I had a lot of questions on this. Pat, are you the one to answer the questions? Okay. So can you explain just what's behind this?
Many of the boards of public health across the county participate in using the Permit-Eyes system for tracking food inspections in particular. And we've been invited by the Alliance under that grant to join the program. It does not encumber us with any responsibility toward the Berkshire Public Health Alliance, as we're now getting closer to the collaborative, Southern Berkshire Collaborative. But it puts us in line so that food inspectors who are shared among the communities can use the same software to record their findings as they go about doing inspections.
So, thank you. So I thought our food inspections were for the most part done by either Tri-Town or the Health Alliance.
They had been done under an hourly agreement with the Berkshire Public Health Alliance. They will now be done by Jane Smith out of the Southern Berkshire Public Health Collaborative. And Jane actually helped design that module for the software program.
So I'm still kind of a little confused, maybe even a little bit more confused. If Jane works for the collaborative, does she not have access to this software on the tablet?
No, it has to be mounted within a town's system. It isn't a joint system. It's individual to the towns.
So it's not like, it's not, if I may, it's not like a cloud system. It actually is, just like our building inspection system is done through Permitize for Sheffield, we would also have to enter into, working with Full Circle Technologies and Permitize for our Board of Health related food inspections.
It actually is a cloud system, but it's individualized to each site.
Sorry.
So there hasn't been exactly a thrilling reception of Permitize for the inspectional services. Okay, a lot of boards have not been thrilled with it. So how does this differ in terms of only one person is going to use it, and that's whoever is the food inspector?
Who's ever doing the inspection, and since those are going to be done by Jane, but we could have other, they call them employees, we could have other users. I mean, I could be a user to follow through on things, or Martin, it doesn't get limited just to one user for the system, but she would be the primary person doing the input.
And when this license is basically, they do the first year, what's the ongoing cost?
It's about $2,300. I looked at the figure, I'm sorry I didn't bring it with me today, for an ongoing license for the maintenance of the system.
And that would be yearly? Annual?
Correct. I don't know what it is for the building module.
I don't know.
That too.
And then the tablet is provided free.
Yeah, that's rolled in. That was a confusing piece. Ignore that. There's not a separate charge for that.
Has this been written, or is it being in use now?
Absolutely. Yep.
So you would have to find the maintenance for this in the budget after the first year.
Correct.
And how much is Jane getting paid a food inspection?
$75 an hour.
So $75 an hour plus $2,300 a year, basically $200 a month for a tablet and software to record these.
I'm sorry.
It's basically $200 a month after the first year to record the inspections.
I'm not sure if that's a good way of calculating it or not. I mean, certainly taking the 2,300 divided by 12 works, but I don't know how many inspections there may be in the course of a year.
Does this do anything else besides food inspections?
Not that, I don't think that module does.
Because it says in here that you have to use the forms that they would provide. So that would just be for food inspections.
Right.
And I have seen a food inspection, it's about this long, they're horrible forms. I remember that from my days on the Board of Health. What would the board like to do, or what questions do you have of Pat?
I'd like to take a little more time, research just a little bit. I'm trying to basically to understand what the major benefit would be to the town versus staying with the permit eyes that we have now.
No, you can't. There's no relationship between the building module and the food.
So how do
public
we do
health.
this now?
We do it now on paper and file paper and lose
So basically
paper.
then, we would just be switching over to
An
an
automated.
automated system.
Correct. Correct.
It's a long form. I mean, I've seen it. It's, I never had to do a food inspection, but it's a very long form. It's an intense process. This would not interplay at all with the permit eyes. That's the module that's used for the inspection on the building inspector. This just be its own little beast. The only thing it
So
comes
the
to.
benefits from this are,
Accuracy of record keeping, more, the ability to search the records and say, okay, how many restaurants have had this problem, how many restaurants are doing this incorrectly, how many food service.
And I think also better real-time reporting to the Board of Health in terms of the progress of inspections. It's now becoming data, and that's the way it works, but the data can be presented to the board during every one of our meetings to say, here's where we are with food inspections. We never did that before, and we were always kind of in the dark. We knew inspections took place, but we really didn't know what the results were.
And you've got Robbie's, you've got the bakery, you've got the marketplace. There are
about 35 various institutions,
35
businesses.
institutions that you have to inspect twice a year. Plus,
Or more.
plus if they fail, then there's more there.
Right. And we will be entering through an FDA grant, two different FDA grants, one from the Alliance and one from the Collaborative, that will ramp up our food program and our sanitation aspects of the food programs, and will get us even more involved in meeting standards that the state has set for food establishments. This will be a helpful piece of that.
What would the board like to do?
what do you think, Martin?
And I have to remember Martin's,
I am on the Board of Health,
he's on the Board of
so
Health, so
I'm going to announce that there might be a potential conflict of interest. However, working with Pat and working with the Board of Health, and knowing what this module is capable of doing, I would make a recommendation that we go with it.
I can't think of any conflict of interest with this, Martin. I can't think of any way that you're
I
benefiting.
just want people to understand.
Just with
Seriously.
time.
No, it's, I'm
I should have
extremely,
clarified that.
I'm
I should have asked you to.
I'm extremely familiar with how our citizens respond to perceived conflicts of interest, so I just want to take that into account.
Well, I'd make a motion then to proceed.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? And when would the year start?
The latest would be the calendar year. I'm not sure. I am not sure.
Just want to make sure we get a full year on this.
Oh, yes.
I mean, seriously, I always,
Right,
I'm
no.
looking for the extra money, but I would hate to
I'm
have this sit
fair.
around for 2 or 3 months with the clock going and not having somebody using this.
Right.
All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Okay. I think it would be wonderful after 6 months, after you have this data, if you come back to the board and let us know how you're using it, what the benefit of this is. I think that would be extremely useful. Thank you, Pat. Okay, so our next item is action regarding license fees for 2022, and these are the selectmen license fees.
Correct.
Rhonda, once again, please.
So in front of you, you have the license list for 2021. It would be my proposal that you keep the licenses the same.
And I believe we kept them the same in 21.
Correct, and the year before that, I think we reduced by
Yeah.
a very slight amount.
And these run calendar year.
They do.
I don't think, yeah.
I'll make a motion to keep the 2022 selectmen's license fees as is in 2021.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. So, next, we have the Board of Health license fees. And unfortunately, we didn't get a copy of this for some reason. And I tried to copy it, and it just, with the colored lines, columns, it just came.
These are for everybody.
No, sorry, the three sheets together are the total.
Yeah,
Board of Health.
I couldn't copy them. They were illegible. So I couldn't do them on the regular copier.
I can do it, and mine's a color. Will that-
Okay, all right, okay. All right, we're just going to take a short break here. Okay. Thank you.
I don't know that.
All right, so we're talking about the Board of Health licensor fees and what is proposed. Pat, since you're the chair, could you go over the philosophy with the board in terms of the increases on these licenses or permit fees?
Right, we went back, we had made a first proposal and found that we couldn't combine things as we had hoped, and so we've gone back and split them up. So this is essentially the same base document that you had seen before, but in a different configuration. The increases are predicated on the fact that we have not raised fees. Martin, do you remember the number of years? Nobody can remember.
No one can remember.
How long ago it was that we raised fees. And as you know, having just passed, agreed to made a motion and agreed to purchase permit eyes for the food inspection, that will be one of the revenue sources to help recover costs for that. There are other aspects that the Board of Health need to support its own work. For instance, equipment that we need to collaboratively support, a sub-zero refrigerator, for instance, for vaccine, now that we'll be getting it for our own region rather than relying on the alliance up north. We're expected to chip in on that. It's going to directly benefit our communities. There are other things of this sort for which we're going to need reasonable revenues that will come directly back to benefit our community, and that's what these fees will go toward.
So, Rhonda, would you please explain to us where these fees go?
So the license fees go into the general fund. The inspection fees would go into the revolving fund.
So, if,
So we'll need to make a budget request against those
okay.
fees, I'm assuming.
No. You would put in your budget request and it would be put into the whole pool with everybody else's. It wouldn't be specifically the Board of Health fees or license fees resulted in a revenue of $500 and now your budget can be $500. It doesn't work that way.
No, I understand.
Okay. Now in your revolving fund, absolutely.
Right.
Now, it's also my understanding from years ago that a fee has to be relative to the cost of an item. In other words, fees can't be used to raise money. I remember that explicitly from Attorney Sally Bell, and we may have to get a current legal opinion on that. But there's been case law that's found in Massachusetts that fees cannot be used to raise revenue beyond what it costs to deliver the service.
Right, I'm assuming that the clerk, for instance, is a service that is folded into the cost for that quarter time or wherever it is that the clerk serves the Board of Health needs. I mean, that's an integral part, and we may in fact need more time than that. I would assume that.
I don't really know, Pat, because that person's salary is paid independent. It's appropriated from the taxpayers. I'm just concerned, I'll just say it, about some of these fees going up. I'm not sure that they're dramatic, because I know that the fees have not been raised, but I'm just a little concerned about the logic behind the fees being raised. I'm not concerned. I am concerned that these may not bear necessarily a relationship to what is the person's expectation as a result of this fee. You know, you talked about fees. You talked about this raising revenue. It's not to raise revenue.
No, I don't mean it in that sense. I meant it against the cost of the service, which is certainly easier to see with inspections that have to occur.
So
if I may, so the board undertook a review of the inspectional fees, licensing and inspectional fees of all of our surrounding towns. And in view of what was clearly showing that Sheffield was the cheapest town in all of Berkshire County, and knowing that we hadn't raised fees, but also knowing that working with both the Berkshire Public Health Alliance and the collaborative, the new collaborative, these costs are being borne more and more by the communities in conjunction with the towns and the boards that we're collaborating with elsewhere. And so we assessed what we thought was the fairness of increasing the fees accordingly, again, to bring them more commensurate with what our surrounding towns have, more modern. Many of those towns had revised their fee structures not just last year, but over the course of many years. This seemed to us to be a fair way to say, we're trying to offer more services in the way of our public health nurse, the initiatives that we're seeing and that we're talking about on a weekly basis with our colleagues in other towns, including syringe services and outreach to drug addiction patients and their families. All of these things cost money, and we're trying to look for ways to say the Board of Health would like to take a more proactive role in the community, but there are costs associated with doing these services. So,
Yeah, but none of this has to do with reaching people in the community that may need drug services. None of these
I don't
licenses.
dispute that. What I'm saying is, from a Board of Health perspective, these are services, these are among the services where they represent closer the costs of what it takes to bring a food inspector into town and to use the software and to do the work.
I have a problem with two of them. The fee increases, farmer's market and the residential kitchen. When you're talking about such a small, modest economic benefit from doing either, it doesn't seem to compare to like a bakery or a restaurant, which is the same as a residential kitchen. When you're making such a small profit, it's hard to justify that large of an increase.
But yet the inspection effort required to do a residential kitchen or to make sure that those vendors at the farmer's market who are selling food are doing the right thing. The cost is still $75 an hour.
So then why are all the current inspections at 35 or 25 or 35?
Because
That doesn't even cover your costs.
that's what we've been trying to say. The current inspection fees don't cover our costs.
So-
They're not anywhere near it.
So why are you just told us the current inspection fees, we can read them, are $35. Your current inspection fee that you mentioned for Jane, though hopefully she'll come down and she'll do several.
That's the point, yes.
She has $75 an hour. How many hours is she guaranteed?
No,
We don't know. There are no.
not really guaranteed, and,
Isn't it 3?
I thought it was 3.
Isn't it a 3-hour minimum?
oh, I
Sorry. That one.
Okay, so
Yes, it
it's
is.
200 and some dollars, $25, and yet the proposed inspection fee is not even covering it.
It's not, because she comes down and she does 3 or 4 inspections within that 3-hour period, or even more.
So why is the current license fee, let's just pick the two that Bob said, residential kitchen or farmer's market, why has it gone up from 25 to 75 in the case of farmer's market? What justifies that $50 charge?
the inspection. And
But the inspection is separate. What am I not understanding here?
I guess I'm not understanding.
So you're looking, the current license, let's just take two, residential kitchen and farmer's market. You're looking on the farmer's market on your proposed license or permit fee. You're looking to go from $25 to $75. Then you have a separate column for the inspections, of which there's 2, I believe, if it's a year-round. What is justifying that $50 charge on the permit fee other than that other towns are charging more?
Primarily, I guess that's where the notion of supporting the whole effort of the Board of Public Health in terms of record keeping, in terms of helping a piece of the permitized system. It isn't just that one exact thing, it's the context within that service occurs within, that needs the whole ball of wax. You can't just parse it out completely into one little compartment and say, oh, you only have to pay that. You've got to look at the whole thing and try and make it rational.
And I guess if by virtue of your question, if you're asking the Board of Health to do that, we will come back to you and ask for a consultant to understand exactly how to parse out the precise license fee and precise inspection fee for every service that the Board of Health provides. I don't understand the logic where you're going with that.
Well, I see nothing for milk and cream store. They're just off scot-free.
No, they are included under restaurant and catering. That includes milk and cream store.
Okay, so let's just cross them out. they've been now included. I just don't understand, I don't understand the logic behind these increases. I'm not necessarily against increases. I just, from what I've heard, it just sounds to me like you're trying to cover the larger Board of Health, which is expanding its, or would like to expand its services under the collaborative or the Berkshire Health Alliance. Therefore, there needs to be money to do that. Therefore, one way to do this is to raise our licensing fees. I understand the inspection being raised because that is $75 potentially times 3 if she comes down to do one inspection. We don't know what she's going to do because you have no history yet.
Right.
I know what the perceived is. So I'm not against raising the inspections, though I do wonder for a farmer's market person having to pay, as you proposed, $75 to get a license to be, 6 months, times potentially another $100, then they pay their license over here at the farmer's market. I'm not sure who's going to be there next year. And if this is a right to farm town, should they not be supported? I don't know. Sometimes there's different ways to do things. I just don't understand all of these. Recreational camp has gone from 50 to 150 for the proposed license. I think your inspection is way too low for what you pay someone to come in for 5 hours. $50 an hour, don't you pay more than that for someone to come in?
That was the most recent quote.
$50 an hour?
But it's a different inspector, it's not Jane, it's a different.
Well, if you can get somebody for $50 an hour to do that, I think that's great. A day camp, if you can get somebody to come in, they'll do it for $125 for 5 hours. I just don't understand some of these changes. The tanning fee goes to $25 to $100. Again, I don't necessarily have any problems with the inspection, but I just don't understand why these rates have gone up so much. That's my basic, I don't understand the logic. Yeah, I know. I just wanted to, do you have any questions?
No, I just basically felt that, some of these businesses make a large income throughout the year. We're talking probably hundreds of thousands of dollars compared to somebody that goes to the farmer's market with a few vegetables that's going to make maybe a couple $100. But the fees are relatively the same. It will be a detriment to that service.
But I think we're misunderstanding something. It's not every vendor at that farmer's market that pays the fee. It's the farmer's market, which then gets divided by 10 or whatever number of vendors are there. Am I not correct, Mark?
Is that how?
My understanding, it's every person at the farmer's market.
Yeah.
Every person needs to be inspected. Every person needs to have a license.
It is for, the inspections are per proprietor, per vendor.
And so are the license.
So is the license.
I apologize.
George.
I misunderstand.
George O'Lane, Foley Road. I used to be the town food inspector. I've been a food inspector off and on for over 60 years. When I'm doing it for the town, the license fee to do business also covered the cost of the inspector. 2 inspections, okay? If you had to go back, I tried to push, they didn't do it, but I tried to push that needed to come out of their pocket, okay? Everybody's supposed to have a copy of the regulations. If they can't follow the regulations, they're putting themselves out of business. So 2 inspections comes from the licensing fee, and there's, then the 3rd or 4th or whatever it is comes from, they pay for it.
It used to be that way, and I remember being on the Board of Health when that was, they were pulled apart primarily because it wasn't covering even the food inspections. And it was felt that if you paid for the food inspections, that would be separate, and the license fee, that's why they were they were teased apart.
Well, the license fee should cover 2 inspections and anything else that's involved with that. So if the license fee has to go to $100, it's $100, but you get your 2 inspections.
I understand, yeah. So, Bob, what do you want to do?
Most of this I'm fine with, it's just those couple of instances that I find might be excessive for the amount of business that these entities would be doing.
And those are
The kitchen,
residential kitchen?
residential kitchen and the farmer's market. Everything else pretty much looks okay to me.
And what would you like to suggest to the Board of Health they do on those two? I mean, I don't know how many residential kitchens we have in town.
I don't know either.
5?
But I'm concerned about one thing. I understand, I hear you, Bob, and I think if we need to make an adjustment, that's a possibility that should be well discussed. What I'm concerned about is getting these published in time to be effective January 1. So what I would like to do, rather than send it back for the board to make adjustments to perhaps 2 of the categories, to pass it with the understanding and pledge that the board will look at it and make suggestions for revision. But in the meantime, let's get the 95% of it up and active.
Can we pass it
Knowing it
and
might be
take those 2
revised.
line items out of the increase for now until the Board of Health has a chance to renegotiate?
You can either, in my view, you can either leave those 2 line items out, or, we haven't heard your suggestions as to what you would raise those to, or leave them the same.
Well, I'd like to leave that to the Board of Health. I'm just bringing up my concern that I think they might be a little too high considering the amount of income that's generated from those type of businesses.
So could you possibly give the board some feeling of a range that you would be acceptable to? So we don't, they meet, what, once a month?
Yes, and
So we don't want to, so,
I would rather the line items be taken out and passed as a separate item so that we didn't hold up the rest of it and then somehow mess up. because
so a
of the
residential
misleading.
kitchen would not be able to get a license? That doesn't seem fair.
But they would remain the same
All right.
as,
You okay with that?
Yes, I'd be fine with that. They stay the same until you figure out, I could understand a small increase. It's just proportionately it would be.
I hear, yeah.
And you're comfortable that you have adequately covered all of your other charges on the inspection side?
Well, we're going to give it a try. We hope that's the case.
Well, because if not, then,
We'll
okay.
have to come back.
So would you consider, when you publish whatever gets passed, that you have a statement on there that the Board of Health reserves the right to increase inspection charges depending on the cost,
You mean
further cost evaluation?
Within a calendar year?
Yeah.
If the board wishes that to be appended, I certainly will make that.
My concern is you're going into the permit eyes on the food inspections. You're going with a whole set of new inspectors that you've not had any experience with. If this is shortfalls, it's the town residents who are going to end up probably paying for it through either a funds transfer from the finance committee or something. It's the town that's going to suffer. So, the money has to come from it somewhere. So if you could put something on there that this is subject to,
Change as necessary by cost?
something
Okay.
that gives you, Rhonda, I don't know if you have a suggestion.
So you're also subject to the spending limit out of the Board of Health revolving for the inspections? So you may have to take a look at that.
I'm just trying to protect so we don't get halfway into the year and there's no money and there's no way to go back and raise fees because there's been no notation that these fees are potentially not going to be good for the whole year. I'm just trying to protect the town. You know what I'm after.
Right.
You know what I'm after. I'm just after not having a $20,000 or $10,000 bill that somebody has to pay.
I certainly would hope for that.
Well, but you're dealing with someone you don't know. I don't hope for that either. But there's a lot of unknowns right now. So would you work with Rhonda on getting some wording that's acceptable? Rhonda, would you work with the board?
Can't you change inspection fees whenever you notice that your costs may be exceeding? I mean, what you're
That was
here,
always my understanding, that.
what I think you're here for today is to take a look at the license fees separate from inspection. To look at both of them at this point and decide you want to increase in both, I think is confusing the two issues. So you have your license fees that go into the general fund. We have healthy free cash now. I don't understand the need for dramatic increases that are here, but you certainly make that decision. And then you have your inspection fees, which I think are a whole different animal that you can change. If you're noticing that it's costing you more than $50 to go to one place, at that point, I think you have the obligation to raise your inspection fees so that that business is paying for the inspection.
Okay, so let's divide this into two parts, okay? Let's take a motion, first of all, on the license fees. And then we'll take a motion on the inspection fees. We'll separate the two out, okay? The license fees will be good for, whatever the board approves will be good for a calendar year, okay? So for 22. And the inspection fees, when we get there, they'll be subject to changes as required. Okay?
Yes.
Are we good with that? Can we do that? All right, so does anybody want to make a motion on the license fees? Bob?
I'll make a motion that we approve the license fee increases, subject to removing residential kitchen and farmers market lines at this time.
So they would stay as written in yellow?
For now.
Okay, I could second that. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, let's take up the inspection fees. Anyone want to make a motion on this?
Again, it would be the same motion, striking out the residential kitchen and the farmers market, and approving the increase in the fees for inspection.
Okay, so you're leaving,
Can I
Rhonda?
just say something? But they require the same inspection as everybody else, so the inspection, I don't think should be removed from those two.
I wouldn't say it had to be removed, but I would say it'd be the lesser amount.
Why it's costing the same. Is
I do understand that.
okay.
Bob wants to, in some ways, support these two types
I
of
don't want to
businesses.
de-incentivize them because they're not making enough money to pay for the additional inspection fees.
So the residents will pay for their, is that what you're, okay.
That would be probably what would happen.
I just want to make sure that we all
Right.
are talking about.
So we have a motion to approve all of the inspection fees in green, with the exception of residential kitchen and farmers market, which will stay at their current inspection rate. And that these will be for calendar year 22, and they are subject to change based on the Board of Health keeping its budget and the revolving fund in line. I'll second that. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. So, we have an announcement of openings for the senior tax work-off program. Rhonda?
So we have opportunities for any resident who may be interested in the senior work-off program. So this is an appeal for anyone who fits the criteria. It's on the website. They can certainly call our office to come and talk to me about what task might best fit them. So we are looking for new people to join the program.
And I think everyone who's come under the senior work-off program, from what I've seen and experienced, has had a really wonderful experience.
They have.
They've really, really enjoyed their work here at Town Hall. So,
Along with us as well, because they've served a great need in our office, the town clerk's office, the assessors, and we even have one who's applying at the transfer station.
yes, and you work with them to find the spot that's going to be best for
Right,
them.
what they're
and their
interested in
interests.
and what our need may be, yes.
So I really encourage people, just, Rhonda just send you an email or give you a call?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. All right. The next item, I'm just going to ask Martin to take over the meeting. I'm going to present this just as our recycling coordinator.
Okay.
Okay. One of the things that we have, Renee, we're a recycling coordinator in Sheffield. One of the things that we've had an issue with is propane tanks. Right now, we don't take them. They shouldn't go into metal. But I want to thank Frank because we had kind of a little bit of a discussion on this, and I didn't realize we didn't take them. But the person who does our electronic recycling bin, so that takes all the batteries and the electronics, anything with a plug, televisions and all of that stuff, he will take propane tanks, and he does not care whether they're empty or full. He will also, the normal barbecue propane tanks. He will also take the individual camp stove propane tanks. Was there another one, Frank?
25-pound cylinders.
The 25-pound cylinders. So I just wanted to bring this to the board because it is another opportunity to get rid of something that can be troublesome, but also can be recycled. And this is something that he will take, and you have a document stating that in your packet tonight. So I would like to see if the board is open to starting to accept propane tanks.
I'm open to the idea. I really have grave concerns about not knowing whether tanks are full or partially full for our employees at the transfer station. I think that is a huge risk, potential huge risk.
Do you want to say that I think Frank had a comment, but do you want to say that they can only be empty? We can specify that.
I don't know how we monitor that, or does that then put Frank and Bob and others in the position of, gee, it seems empty, but I don't know. I don't want them turning valves on and risking their lives for being able to recycle propane tanks.
So do you want to not take propane tanks and just let this go?
I think propane tanks are relatively safe as long as they're not compacted or near fire or flame. They're relatively safe. As long as Frank and the transportation have a good place to store them before they leave. You wouldn't want one to fall into the compactor, but
Definitely not.
you would definitely, recycling them is a good idea. And if they'll take them with gas in them, as long as the valves stay closed and they're handled properly, they're relatively safe.
Well, and I guess that goes to the heart of my concern. Do we then task our own employees with ensuring that the valves are closed when somebody drops off a tank? I feel kind of uncomfortable with what I perceive as a potential risk that we don't have right now.
Personally, I think if you feel there's that much of a risk, we should not go forward with this.
Well, again, I'm only one vote out of 3, so.
Right.
And Frank speak?
Can I ask? Frank Clark, Silver Street. My concern is, does he have the permits to transport propane? If we put a live tank in the vehicle, in the container, does he have a license to transport this?
I can find that out.
I mean,
I'm kind of assuming.
to me, it's kind of an old subject unless we find out if the guy has the proper licenses to transport propane. I mean, that's a hazardous material, propane, and you have to have special licenses to transport this stuff. So it may be,
Sounds like a reasonable request.
in my second opinion, is where do we store this stuff? Are we gonna put this into the bin with the air conditioners and TVs and everything else, or is it gonna go into a separate bin? I don't mind taking the stuff, but I just wanna know that everything's up to
get some more information, I'll bring it back to the board. Okay? We'll table this.
Thank you, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Frank. All right, our next item is discussion possible action regarding the use of American Rescue Plan funds at our retreat. We went ahead and took all the suggestions and kind of made a first cut at what we would like to potentially focus in on. I'd like to ask Martin to read those for us.
Sure. This is from our 22nd October board retreat meeting. The American Rescue Plan Act funds short list of ideas. The first is improving internet access throughout the town. The second is improvements to community outdoor spaces, and these are these are not prioritized order. I'm just giving you the sort of numbers of the bullets. The third is capital investments in public facilities, the library and town park. Fourth is the acquisition of a backup generator for the library to support the use as a warming shelter and cooling station, and also the acquisition of a backup generator for town hall. Fifth is the acquisition of lots or dwellings close to the village green and development of environmentally sound, affordable housing in conjunction with subsidies from state and federal governments. Next is upgrade the third floor area of town hall to provide more room for employees. The next is turnout gear for the volunteer fire department to assist them with their acquisition of turnout gear. Next is, in certain circumstances, the payment of back taxes to the town with residents entering into agreements to make regular payments when they have back taxes. Next is support for job programs and small businesses. Again, the extension of internet access to those that are without, and concentrated efforts to control invasive species in our woodlands. Next is funding for the Sheffield Times from May and June of 2000 to, or sorry, is that May and June, MJ? I don't know.
May, June.
May, June 2000 to May, June 2022 for $16,620, the exact amount to be determined. Next is fiber optic internet to support businesses, young children, and those in school, and to support economic development. Next is internet upgrades for children and businesses and funding for multifamily housing, and getting all non-code changes upgraded to legally supported code so that these housing units may be rented out legally, and looking for purchasing support of multifamily houses. And lastly, compensation for training that the town administrator's office has been undertaking with regard to various administrative duties throughout town hall.
I'm going to ask everyone to check their notes from the retreat. I have several of these items that I had crossed out when we were going through these. So if everyone could just check their notes, we'll do a comparison at either a working session or the next meeting, okay?
I have one of those as well, so.
Okay, great, wonderful. All right. So next we have a discussion, possible action regarding a one-day alcoholic beverage permit. Rhonda?
We have an application from the Housatonic Valley Art League for an event on December 5th from 4:30 to 7:30 at Dewey Hall. If you are so inclined to approve this, I would hope that you would do it pending receipt of the insurance information that we've requested.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have discussion, possible action regarding a solicitation permit. Actually, it's two, in the sense that it's two separate people for Trinity Solar. Rhonda?
So we have received an application from two young men who are working for Trinity Solar that would like to go door to door to promote their services. We have Xavier Conway and Sebastian Zapata.
Discussion?
Well, we've had discussions before about door-to-door solicitations, and you know I am not a fan under any circumstances, particularly for commercial purposes. I wouldn't be in favor of issuing the permit.
Found it fascinating that they submitted the instruction sheet
I know.
for the sales representative. I'm also not necessarily in favor of, certainly not of two. This is residential financing options. I think this is a very slippery slope. This is much different than magazine subscriptions or candy bars. I'm uncomfortable, to say the least. Bob, how about you?
I agree fully.
So is there a motion on this matter?
Motion to deny.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, board items, Martin?
Nothing for me, thanks.
Bob?
Nothing.
Nothing for me. Town administrator items?
Nothing for me.
Public comment?
I'm sorry, did that go flying?
All right, could I have one last motion?
To adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for
Thank you.
joining us tonight. This ends this meeting.